This is Bedtime Stories, Grownup Edition, Sins of the Father, bonus episode 2. Baby, when we left off, Amir was preparing Annabelle for her meeting with Catherine, and he was not so subtly reminding her of her position. Melissa was in Puerto Rico, getting the help that she needed, and the entire family was preparing for Nigel's private memorial service and funeral. And Donovan was trying to find an angle that he could use to get Portia to, at the very least, remove the ropes from his wrists and ankles. Melissa had said quite a few things to him the day that they spent at his home at the family community in Denton, Texas. A lot of it made no sense at the time, but 4 days into captivity, Donovan is getting more and more desperate, and so is Portia. He's vacillated between trying to cooperate with her and stay on her good side, trying to negotiate with her and broker a deal that will get him freed, and trying to rationalize with her and convince her that this whole entire scheme is a terrible idea and she should just let him go. And thus far, nothing he's tried is working. He's been without food for several days, has barely slept, and by the grace of God, Portia hasn't drugged him again. But it's obvious that if Donovan can't give her the physical fulfillment she's looking for of his own free will, soon Portia is not only going to resort to medication, but she's going to get violent. Over the last few days, Donovan was successful at distracting Portia by getting her to share with him about her life growing up and about Jeff's and their friendship. When Portia revealed that Jeff had also been diagnosed with bipolar disorder, it all made sense. She also admitted that she'd been cheeking her pills at the treatment facility, and she was the one who switched the pills that Donovan was supposed to take with her prescription schizophrenia medication. She told Donovan that that was Jeff's idea, and the plan was executed intentionally to frame the medtech. Her hope was that she'd be able to do it several times. When Donovan asked why, Portia said, "Because you talked, and you talked a lot. You told me all about your family. You told me all about the 4 families, about Maribel, about all of the wild sex that you had with Rennie. And when I told you to show me, you showed me. I needed to get more information for Jeff, and I needed me a baby. The only problem was you caught on too soon, and I couldn't do it again. And the next thing I knew, you'd gotten released, and I was sick. Even I was shocked that I'd gotten so attached to you so quickly. I tried to off myself and ended up in the hospital. And since I couldn't have visitors, Jeff had himself assigned to my case because I ended up needing surgery. Because he was on my surgical team, he was able to pay me a visit to check on me and see how I was doing. And when we got alone, he was pissed. He told me that I was ruining the plan, that I needed to get better and get out so that I could get with you. What started out as me just getting information for him had turned into him wanting me to actually be with you, which was fine by me because I wanted you, and I wanted you real bad. But that's when he told me that he needed you out of the way so that he could get the woman that he wanted. And when I asked him about her, he refused to tell me her name, but he did admit that she was a doctor at that same hospital. And that's when I remembered that that woman who came to see you at the facility, she was a doctor too. And when I played back what you told me, I realized that she had to be the woman that he was talking about. So I asked him to bring me a computer that I could use. And the next time he came to visit, I looked up Maribel Lopez on the hospital directory. And what do you know? She came up as an OBGYN with privileges at that hospital. Donovan said, "So how did you end up attacking Maribel, though?" Portia said, "I took Jeff's advice. I got better, and I got released. And when I got out, he was out of the country. So he rented a room and a car, let me use them, and told me to stay put, to get to know the area, and to stay out of trouble. So I did. That hospital directory I told you about, It listed the practice where Maribel actually worked. I sat outside and watched her come and go. I followed her all over Dallas. I even sat in the lobby of that building where she worked. And one day, I got lucky. I ran into one of the women that I recognized as a janitor at the hospital, heavily pregnant, coming out of Maribel's practice. And she was one of her patients. So I made nice, and we became friends. She was in Dallas practically all alone, just like me. And she needed a friend. When Maribel put her on bed rest, I was right there to make sure she had everything she needed, while also keeping an eye on Maribel. And everywhere she was, there you were, sniffing behind her and getting rejected left and right. I was embarrassed for you. And then the day that my friend went into labor, I thought that I had run out of time. Jeff had called me that same day and told me that he was back. There was some family emergency and he wanted me to come visit him at the estate. He didn't know that I had already followed Maribel to that estate. Guess she got the call about my friend being in labor right about the same time that I did. I got her to the hospital, got her settled, and then went back to her apartment and got one of her uniforms. When I got back to the hospital, my friend was going in for an emergency cesarean, and her family was there. So I headed out, changed into her uniform, and waited for Maribel to enter that locker room. I had no idea that girl was going to fight like that. Do you know she almost broke my neck? Donovan said, sounds about right. He was raised by a kingpin. I knew I wouldn't have another opportunity to try again, so I decided to just go with Jeff's plan. Donovan said, but why do all of this, Portia? Why go to these kind of lengths to get with a man who you think doesn't want you? Portia said, because I love you, Donovan. Donovan said, that's not love, Portia. I've loved a few women in my lifetime, and it never occurred to me to drug them and tie them to a bed. Portia said, would you have come here with me if I asked? Donovan said, probably not, but everybody has a right to be able to decide for themselves. You took that right away from me, Portia. At this point, I actually want to give you what you want, but you've put me in such a crazy position, I can't even perform. I'm hungry, thirsty, dirty. Nothing about this situation is a turn on for me. The least you could do is let me wash my body, give me something to eat, and change these damn sheets. Portia said, okay. Meanwhile, at the safe house, Maribel is filleting Jeff's sausage like a catfish. She starts the first incision without anesthesia. Jeff lets out the scream heard around the world, in more pain than he'd ever been in his life, and afraid that he was getting ready to lose his member. Jeff said, all right, I'll tell you. Maribel said, you sure? Because I'm mid-incision here. You know how crucial it is to get this line straight. Jeff said, me and Maribel for life. Capital M's, the number 4, exclamation point at the end. Maribel said, how predictable. Just so you know, you're wrong. And if this password doesn't work, I'm cutting it off. Then Maribel called Lorenzo, gave him the password, and he was in. Maribel said, you need anything else, Zoe? Zoe said, yes. I need the password to his Google Password Manager. Maribel said, password to your Google Password Manager. Jeff said, your birth date, 6 digits. When Maribel told Zoe, Zoe said, damn, that nigga obsessed with you, ain't it? Maribel said, you think? Did it work? Zoe said, it did. I'm gonna get the login and password to the surveillance system over to the Queen Mother. Where are we on the address to the cabin? Maribel asked, how's Donovan doing? Zoe said, from the looks of things, he's doing good. His feet are currently untied, and he only has one hand tied. Maribel said, then I'm gonna let Jeff stew until Rennie gets here. He's gonna give it all up, whether he wants to or not. When Zoe called the Queen Mother and told her that he was finally in the laptop and that he had access to the surveillance system where Portia was holding Donovan, she said, have Stacks assign one of the soldiers to keep a constant eye on those surveillance cameras and report back to me any and everything that we can possibly use, not only to figure out where she's holding him, but how we might disable those booby traps. And you, get over to the church. Your father's gonna need you. He's saying goodbye to one of his closest friends, one of his brothers. Meanwhile, at the St. James estate in Miami, Catherine is watching as one of her drivers is pulling up with Annabelle in the back seat. Catherine is not going to make this meeting easy by any means. She's got the car held up at security for almost 25 minutes. A minute for every year that Annabelle was having an affair with her husband. When the driver finally pulled into the circle in front of the house, she had him stop so far from the front door that Annabelle had to walk uphill in 95-degree weather in her stilettos and take in the lavish, lush property. If you thought the estate that Angela and Stephanie owned in Texas was something, or the estate that they owned in Puerto Rico was hitting on something, well, baby, you had to see the St. James estate in Miami. Perfectly manicured grass, palm trees galore, rolling hills, stables, an Olympic-sized pool with a water park. The property went on for days, and even as far as the car was parked away from the main entrance, Annabelle couldn't get but a glimpse of the estate. She thought she was doing something, living in the huge mansion that Nigel had put her up in. Her 9-bedroom house ain't have nothing on this. The estate was crawling in security, and Catherine had the nerve to have her luxury vehicles pulled out of the garage and being cleaned as if she was going to actually drive them all. When Annabelle finally made her way to the front door, she had to wait several minutes for the butler to finally open it. And when he did, she attempted to step in and he said, "Excuse me, please remove your shoes." He promptly led her to the sitting room where tea service had been prepared. And again, she waited nearly 25 minutes for Catherine to enter the room. A minute for every year that she was sleeping with her husband. When Catherine finally swept into the room, dressed like old money, in a cream black label pantsuit, a pair of leopard print red bottoms, dripping in diamonds, including the 10 carats on her left ring finger, and her long salt and pepper hair, and a fresh doobie, she didn't even acknowledge Annabelle's presence until she was seated with a cup of tea in hand, served by one of her housekeepers. She said, "Thank you for agreeing to come and meet me. Under the circumstances, I can imagine that this was difficult for you. To make it a little easier for you, there are movers at the home that we allowed you to stay in, packing everything up. And when you get there, you can let them know where they should take your things." Annabelle said, "What? You put me out on the street? That's my house." Catherine said, "No, dear, your name is not on the deed. My husband's is. That means that's my house. You had 4 days to find somewhere else to go. I'm sure you have, haven't you? Now, you may not have been smart enough to get your own man, and it doesn't appear that you were smart enough to have him procure property in your name. But please tell me that you were smart enough to set aside some funds and/or procure property of your own." Annabelle said, "We have 5 children who you're going to displace?" Catherine said, "They're not being displaced. One of your children is in Trinidad, being trained to be a finisher. Another is living comfortably in New York, and he's on his way back here for his father's funeral. The other 3 are getting the bad news at college right now, and they'll be heading this way shortly. Now, what you tell them all when they get here is up to you. But all that matters to me is that you are out of my home, and that you leave the keys to that brand new Benz and that Mercedes truck on the counter before you go." Annabelle jumped up and said, "So you gonna take my cars too? I get it. You salty because I gave him what you couldn't, because he loved me and kept you around for appearances." Catherine asked, "Did he tell you that? Really? He told you he loved you and he was keeping me around for appearances? For real? Which one of those things did you believe? Or did you believe them both?" Annabelle said, "I didn't come here for this. You're not going to belittle me. I didn't choose him. He chose me." Catherine said, "If I were you, I'd have a seat and lower my voice. Because women who raise their voices at me find themselves in a grave. Salty? Never. Ruthless? Absolutely. If what you gave him was more valuable than what I gave him, then you would have been taking my place and not the woman who was in your place before you. You better ask about me. She got beside herself, and I dealt with her. As a result, there was a vacancy. When my husband took his last breath, your job was done. Now I won't ask you again to sit down. Then Annabelle heard 2 guns cocked behind her back. When she looked over her shoulder, there was 2 soldiers standing there, guns aimed at her head. She sat down. Then Catherine said, now you're going to have to find a way to explain to your children why their names won't appear in their father's obituary, why they won't be seated with the family at the funeral, and why you won't be there. They're welcome to come to the family-only memorial service. That will be an opportunity for them to meet their family. I'm sure that their aunts and uncles and their cousins would love to meet Sincere, Saint, Simone, Chantal, and Star for the very first time. It's unfortunate that they're meeting their cousins under these circumstances, but you have the opportunity to be instrumental in ensuring that that first meeting is a pleasant one. Now, depending on how you play this, I can either help ensure that they're welcomed with open arms, or I can ensure that they continue to be outsiders. I have the power to give them access to all of the benefits of wearing the St. James name. And while they don't stand to inherit a dime, my signature on this paperwork will legitimize them. Then one of the soldiers handed her a stack of paperwork and an envelope. So, you can play this my way and secure your children's futures, or you can make this all harder and leave your children planning their mother's funeral. Annabelle said, I'm confused. At this point, I don't understand what it is that you want. You want me to move out of the house, give you the cars back, but you want my children to be a part of your family? What is your angle here? Are you trying to take my children from me? Catherine said, your children are grown. If I wanted children, I could have adopted. My husband gave his children everything he could. The only thing that he could not give them while he was alive was his last name and his family. The same way that I don't understand, and I certainly don't care to, how any woman with any amount of self-respect could involve herself with another woman's husband and have 5 children with him, while remaining his dirty little secret for nearly 25 years. I'm sure you can't understand why I'd remain married to him for nearly 40. I don't need an explanation from you about why you made the choices that you made. And it'll be a cold day in hell before you get one from me. What I will tell you is that for all of his philandering, believe me, you were not the only one. My husband was dedicated to his family name, and his family's business. He owed debts in this life that he could not repay. And while he was not a faithful husband, he was loyal to his last name. His inability to give his children all of him kept him up at night. And the rest of the St. James family does not deserve to pay for his bad choices. I can't make up for the things that he did wrong. There's no amount of money in the world that can repay me for what I sacrificed. But I have the power to ensure that his nephew doesn't have to compromise his own integrity to continue a legacy that was started generations ago. You have 2 sons, one of which is already in the life. The other is perfectly positioned to claim his father's seat at the table. But that's going to require time, training, and dedication. And he's going to need my help to do that. You want to continue enjoying the lifestyle that you've become accustomed to? Then you'll make this entire situation go a whole lot smoother. You'll tell your children the truth about who you were to my husband. And you'll let me tell them who they are. And you'll allow me to shape and mold Sincere into the man he needs to be to become the kingpin. Annabelle said, and if I don't? Catherine said, then you take that last little disbursement that Amir has for you and you move on with your life. Find you a new sugar daddy. Split what's left 6 ways and let your 5 children figure it out. But know this, the only person in the world who was able to keep you safe from me is no longer here. And any decision that you make that results in one of my nephews being at the head of this family is going to result in your children spending that money to put you in the ground.